Hello everyone. Today's lesson is on the topic of measures of central tendency. Now when we say central, basically what we're looking for is different ways of talking about the middle of certain numbers. Now there is one quantity that everybody is probably used to, and that is the quantity of average. In math, we tend to talk about the mean instead of the average. Okay, mean and average mean the same thing. So let's say you have three classes and you get these 3 marks, 86, 78, and 70 in those 3 classes. How would you calculate the mean or the average of those 3 marks? So to calculate an average, you should remember that what you do is you add all 3 marks and you divide by how many of them there are. Okay? So in other words, it's the sum of all the numbers divided by how many there are. So not the total, but the total amount of different values. Okay? So you add them all up and you divide by how many of them there are. So if we do this on a calculator, gotta make sure the right calculator is showing here. So you've got 86 plus 78 plus 70. Now, because I didn't put I should have technically put a bracket around the top, I'm just going to press equals right now to get the total of the top, and then I'm going to press divided by 3. So my final answer here is 78. So let's go back to the smartboard here. So the final answer is 78. And that would be your average mark for those 3 marks. Okay? Or the mean of the 3 marks. So if I asked you to find the mean of these 3 numbers, I'm just getting you used to the word mean here. Okay? So again, we would add the 3, 84 plus 80 plus 60. And we would divide by the total amount of values, which is 3. And once again, I will switch over to the calculator. So we have 84 plus 80 plus 60. And I'm going to press equals, and then I'm going to press divided by 3. And that gives 74.6. So that is how you calculate a mean. If you had 4 numbers, let's say you had 4 classes, let's say we had another mark here of 90%, you would just add 90 to the end of this and divide by 4 instead. So it's always divided by the total number of values that you've added up at the top. Well, what are other measures of central tendency? Well, the median is one that is used quite a bit. Let's just look at one of these questions at a time. So the median is what's called the exact middle if all of the numbers are placed in order. So sometimes the numbers won't be given to you in order and you actually have to place them in order yourselves. In this case, I've already done that. So if you look over those numbers, they are in order. What is the exact middle? Well, how many numbers do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers. That means there is an exact middle because we have an odd number of values. The exact middle is the 3rd number, and that's because we have 2 numbers on this side and 2 numbers on that side. So the exact middle, because there's an odd amount of values, will be your median. So the median in this case is 7. What happens if you don't have an odd number of numbers? So in this example, we have 4 numbers, and I'm asking you to find the median. Well, the middle in this case is here. So what do we do in a case like this? Well, in a case like this, you have to find the mean of the two, central values. And that'll always be the case if you have an even number of numbers that you're trying to find the median for. So to find the median, we actually need to use the idea of the mean. So if you remember from the definition of the mean, if we're trying to find the mean of 2 numbers, we just add the 2 numbers and divide by 2. Well, 8 plus 17, let's do a little bit of mental math here. To get from 17 to 20, I need 3. So let's steal 3 from 8. That leaves 5. So now I'm up to 20, and then the 5 that's left over brings me to 25. Half of 24 is 12. Half of 25 is 12.5. So in this case, the median is equal to 12.5. Okay? So when you have an even number of values, you have to do a little bit more work to calculate the median. You have to find the mean of the 2 central values to be able to do that. Another central value is what we call the mode. The mode is the number that repeats itself the most. And you can actually have more than one mode, which we're going to see in a minute. But in this list of numbers, and again, they are listed in numerical order, that won't always be the case. Sometimes the numbers are going to be listed not numerical order, and you're going to have to place them that way. Although for the mode, it's not absolutely necessary, because you might be able to see what's the most repeating number anyway, even if they're not listed in numerical order. But in this case, I'm sure you can see that the mode is equal to 8. Okay, so the most repeated number is 8. None of the other numbers repeat. Now, like I said, that's not always the case. Sometimes you have more than one mode, and you can have no mode. It is possible that if none of the numbers repeat, that you actually don't have a mode at all. But in this case, we have 2 modes. And I'm using simple examples here. The 8 repeated twice. It could repeat 3 times. You could have 3 8s. Here I have 2 4s and 2 6s. I could have had 3 4s and 3 6s. It doesn't matter. It's just which one repeats the most. Okay? So we have 2 modes. The modes would be 4 and 6. So that is possible to have multiple modes. Once again, if there's ever any questions with anything, please email me and let me know, and I'll get back to you with more instructions. So here's a different presentation for data. This is actually from, let's say, a tally chart, and let's say these are the salaries of a bunch of people at a company. Okay, so what this number means is how many people have a salary of that much. Okay, so 8 people have a salary of 43,000, 2 people have a salary of 38,000, 2 people have a salary of 48,000, and 1 person has a salary of 100,000. Okay, so the issue here is if I ask you to calculate the mean, well, I really don't want to have to list 8 43,000s. Okay, I really don't want to have to even list 2 of these, 2 of these, and 1 of those. although I'm going to have to use those numbers to find the final answer. The main problem is if you have a lot of them to repeat, it's going to take up a lot of room on your line. So, but we know that if there's 8 of those, you can use a multiplication. Instead of adding 43,000 8 times, that's just 8 times 43,000. So I'm just going to add all of these up using these numbers as the coefficients multiplying the salary. So there's 2 38,000s. There's 2 48,000s. And there's the 100,000. So I still had to write out all of the numbers, but I didn't have to write out 8 of these, 2 of these, and 2 of these. The multiplication of those is going to be enough. Now I have to divide that by the total number of different values. Well, these will give me my total number of values. 8 plus 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12, plus 1 is 13. And that is what I'm going to divide all of this by. So that has to be done on a calculator. I'm just going to do this off screen so I don't have to pull up the calculator here. And I'll show you the answer, and you can do it at home on a calculator just to make sure you're getting the same answer. So 8 times 43,000 plus, and if you're using a scientific calculator, you can do this all in one step, 2 times 38,000 plus 2 times 48,000 plus 100,000. And that's giving me 616,000, which, because this is a slightly bigger calculation, I'm actually going to write it down. You can double check if I made a mistake there. And then we're going to divide that by 13. And that gives 47,384 and 61 cents. 62 cents if I round it off. So that is the average salary for somebody working at this company. What if I now asked you, what is the median? I'm just going to check one little thing here. Yeah. Okay. So what if I asked you what the median is? So to find the median, it's the exact middle. Now, luckily, these salaries, these salaries are not listed in numerical order, okay? So on the next slide, I've actually just rearranged all of the numbers so that they're in numerical order, okay? So with the numbers in numerical order, we're trying to find the middle value. But the problem is, where is the middle value? Because we have multiple amounts of each salary, we have to do a little bit of math here to find the middle. Well, if you remember, if we think of what the total was, what was the total from the previous slide? If we go back, the total was 13. Okay, so 10 plus 3 is 13. I guess we could have easily calculated that again. What is the middle of 13? Well, the middle of 13 is 6.5. So that's what we're looking for here, is the 6.5 place in this list. Well, if we start with 2 and we add 8, we're already beyond 6.5 because 2 plus 8 is 10. So 6.5 happens in this section. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So right in this section here, between 6 and 7, the 6th and 7th person, if you will, this is where the middle is. So in this case, the median is 43,000. Because it happens in that grouping, if you will. Okay, the 6.5th person, if you will, happens in that grouping. So that's how you figure out the median. How would you go about finding the mode here? Well, if you remember, the mode is the most common or the most repetitive value. Well, there's 8 43,000s. That's the most repetitive salary in this case. There's only 2 of these, there's only 2 of these, there's only 1 of these. So 8 repeats itself, the 43,000 repeats itself the most. It repeats 8 times. So 43,000, not only is it the median, but it's actually the mode in this case as well. So those are your main measures of central tendency: mean, median, and mode. The mean is your average, so adding up all the values, dividing by how many of them there are. Median is the exact middle, and if you have an odd number of listed values, you just find the mean of the 2 middle ones. You just find the exact middle one. If you have an even number, you find the mean of the 2 middle ones. And if you have a list like this, you have to do a little bit extra math to find those values. That's actually the end of today's lesson. Those 3 concepts are the main concepts for today's lesson. So I'm going to give some homework in the Google Classroom. Please make sure to get that homework looked at. And if you have any questions, make sure to ask for extra help in email. Have a great day, everyone.